Praise the Lord Jesus Christ. Welcome to the Explainer, Focus Learners. Today we're unpacking a fascinating and honestly deeply misunderstood theological concept, the true biblical definition of idolatry. If you've ever thought you had this topic completely figured out, well, prepare to look at the source material through an entirely new lens.
So, is idol worship literally just bowing down to statues? Most of us would probably say, well, yeah, obviously. We immediately picture ancient temples, carved figures, and physical acts of devotion. But what if the biblical texts reveal a much deeper, invisible reality? What if true idolatry has very little to do with your body and literally everything to do with the posture of your heart?
Okay, let's dive into this. Today's roadmap covers what is idol worship, the Bible's clear instructions, real idol worship, the hidden idols of pride and greed, and finally, respect versus idolatry. Let's get right to it.
Section 1. What is idol worship? We'll start by exploring traditional definitions.
You know, when most people hear the word idolatry, their minds immediately conjure up very specific physical images. The common understanding is that idolatry is the literal act of bowing down to physical objects, a statue, a carved pillar, a picture, or a cross. For a lot of folks, avoiding idolatry simply means making sure they never physically bow to a man-made object. But reducing this to just the physical rule totally misses the core spiritual message.
Moving on to Section 2, the Bible's clear instruction. Let's examine a pretty fascinating scriptural paradox.
Now, what's really interesting here is an apparent contradiction in the texts. On the left, in Exodus chapter 20, God explicitly commands, "You shall not make for yourself an image to worship." Pretty clear, right? Yet, on the right, literally just a few chapters later in Exodus 25, God explicitly commands Moses to craft these highly detailed, physical golden cherubim for the tabernacle. So wait, God forbids statues to replace him, but then commands physical elements for his own temple? Why? Well, because the issue isn't the physical object itself, it's the purpose it serves.
This verse from Deuteronomy really explains the why. God is described as a consuming fire, a jealous God. Now, this isn't human envy, like getting jealous over someone's car. It's a righteous demand for exclusive spiritual devotion. He absolutely rejects anything or anyone elevated to replace his primary position in our trust, our hearts, and our worship.
Which brings us to Section 3. What is real idol worship? We're shifting our focus from the physical to the spiritual.
Let's clarify something absolutely crucial here. Keeping objects for memory, respect, or teaching, that is not strictly idolatry. Think about it. Historically, society builds statues of figures like Gandhi to honor their memory. Churches display crosses or paintings of figures like Jesus or Mary as teaching tools and historical reminders. These physical items, which are just meant to trigger remembrance or convey respect, are not the idols the Bible warns against, provided they aren't the source of your salvation or worship.
So what is actual real-deal idol worship? Well, true idolatry is a spiritual state of the heart. It literally happens the moment you take anything. It could be a human being, your bank account, your career, your family, or even your own ego, and you place it above God. If an object, a person, or a desire takes the throne of your heart and becomes your ultimate source of trust and authority, you're engaging in true idolatry. And you can do all of that without ever setting foot in a physical temple.
All right, Section 4. Pride, greed, and idol worship. Let's identify these invisible idols.
And this brilliantly illustrates the theology, because the texts outline 3 actual forms of idolatry that have absolutely nothing to do with physical statues. Number 1, trusting human wealth or leaders over God's provision. 2, harboring stubbornness and unyielding pride. And 3, living a life consumed by greed. Let's look a little closer at those last 2.
Just look at this powerful verse from 1 Samuel. It mathematically equates arrogance and stubbornness to the evil of idolatry. The biblical figure Queen Jezebel is actually a perfect example of this. Her sheer arrogance and refusal to listen to God embodied this concept perfectly. When you stubbornly declare, "I won't listen, I'm going to do it my way," you are effectively declaring yourself to be God. That kind of self-worship is the ultimate form of idolatry.
Furthermore, the Apostle Paul in Colossians directly states that greed is idolatry. When you just cannot let go of your worldly desires, those desires literally become your God. Contrast this with the story of Abraham. Abraham proved he didn't idolize his deeply loved son Isaac because he was entirely willing to surrender him back to God. True worship is marked by a willingness to surrender. Idolatry is marked by a greedy refusal to let go.
Moving into our final section, Section 5, Respect versus Idol Worship. We're distinguishing reverence from replacement.
Here is the clear dividing line for us. Idolatry on the left is bowing down, whether physically or spiritually, to replacements of God, actually believing those replacements can offer you salvation, provision, or ultimate truth. Reverence on the right is showing deep honor and respect to the people and places God himself has chosen and filled with his Spirit. Honoring those whom God honors is entirely different from trying to replace God.
The scriptures are just full of examples of this. Take the story of Joseph. Back in Genesis, it was prophesied that peoples would bow down to him, and later on, his brothers did exactly that. They bowed down to Joseph in Egypt. Did this provoke God's jealousy? No way! God actually orchestrated it. Because bowing to Joseph in respect wasn't idolatry. Joseph was a spirit-filled servant who constantly pointed all the glory right back to God.
Let's move to and see how this builds across the biblical timeline. You have Jacob bowing down to his brother Esau. You have Abigail falling face down in the dirt before David. Even the mighty King Nebuchadnezzar falls completely prostrate before the prophet Daniel. None of these acts of deep physical reverence were condemned as idolatry. Why? Because showing respect to human authorities or God's chosen prophets is not the same as worshiping them as a deity.
It all comes down to this logic perfectly. When you show deep respect to a spirit-filled servant, whether that's Paul, Peter, David, or even a modern-day believer, you aren't replacing God. You are honoring the God who sent them. Jesus himself stated in John 12 that the Father will honor anyone who serves him. So acknowledging the vessel ultimately brings glory to the master who shaped it.
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. It's so easy to point fingers at statues, paintings, and physical traditions and feel totally secure that we aren't idol worshippers. But based on the true biblical standard, we really need to look inward. Stop worrying just about the physical objects for a second and ask yourself this. In your own heart, through your pride, your stubbornness, or your greed, what have you truly placed above God? Take a moment to reflect on that, focused learners. Until next time, keep learning, keep seeking, and keep growing.